In the previous video lesson, I took a look at taking snapshots of my logical volume. This lesson is going to focus in on using those snapshots. So we're going to look at reverting back to a previous snapshot, as well as mounting those snapshots. To begin, I'll run sudo lvs. I can see my three snapshots, snap 1, snap 2, and snap 3. The snap 1 was a really small snapshot that I took, and I proved the point of exceeding my copy on write table. So this one is, honestly, it's useless. I can see the dash capital I, it's not valid, it's inactive or invalid, and I cannot use it. I can't even mount to it. The other two are both writable, and I can write or read the contents of these snapshots, so I can actually mount them to my file system. Let me demonstrate that to you. I'm going to cd into my /mnt directory, and I'll run an ls and see what I have here. Storage 1 I usually reserve for my logical volume in these lessons, so I'm going to leave that one alone and just try to use storage 2. If I run a df-h, I can see volume 1 is mounted to storage 1, but storage 2 is still available. So let's go ahead and use that directory I created earlier. So sudo mount dev, and then this is going to be my volume group, which is mydata-vg /snap2. We'll mount it to /mnt storage 2, and let's go ahead and take a look. df-h, and I can see now my snapshot is mounted just as if it was a regular volume to work with. If I cd into the folder, let's cd into storage 2, run an ls, I can see there's file 1, which is what I created in a previous lesson. So I can actually put files in here. So for instance, sudo, let's just nano a file here, test.txt. This is a test. And I can make changes to my snapshot while it still is in existence and still is recording the changes from the original logical volume. So as the changes were made on the logical volume, they get copied to my snapshot, but I can add additional data or remove data from my snapshot as well. I'm going to go ahead and cd ... take you back a directory so that I'm out of that. And let's go ahead and unmount that. Sudo umount. We'll unmount mnt storage 2. Now let's make some changes to the actual logical volume that I have. So this is where we really want to take snapshots, as if we want to go back to a previous state. So if I cd into storage 1, I can see my file 1 and file 2 are there. Let's just say we accidentally removed everything. Sudo rm rf, and the -r is recursive and f is force, if you're not familiar with that. And let's go ahead and use the asterisk to say remove everything within the directory. So now if I run an ls, and ls-lah, I can see that this directory is completely empty and I've deleted all of my files. So what do? We can revert back to a previous state in my snapshot. I'll cd ... To do this properly, we are supposed to unmount the actual logical volume that we want to revert it back to. So I'm going to go ahead and say sudo umount mnt storage 1. And now my logical volume is no longer mounted on the operating system. And if I run sudo lvs, I can see volume 1 is not open. So it's not currently being mounted or used. And I can revert back to that previous state. So let me show you. If I run sudo lvconvert, there we go. I'm going to use the -- merge option. And we're going to go ahead and say /dev mydata-vg we'll say snap2. And this is going to go ahead and go to snap2, and we're saying that we want to merge snap2 and all of the changes that we have copied on snap2 back into my volume 1 LV. And I don't have to have anything else here in my command. And if you ask, well, how does it know which logical volume to mount it to? If I look at my lvs command, I can see that snap2 right here has the origin labeled as volume 1. So it already knows which logical volume to mount it to or merge it with. If I hit enter, it's going to go through the process here of merging everything back to my snap2. Now, I did make a change on snap2, so that change should also be reflected in my volume once it's done. All right, so now that it's done, let's go ahead and take a look at what we have. So I'm going to mount it back on my system. Sudo mount dev mydata-vg volume 1 lv. Oops, I need to add in the mount point /mnt storage 1. If I cd into storage 1, there we go, and run an ls, I can see file 1 has been restored, which was part of that snap 2, as well as that file that I had modified in that snapshot while I had it mounted. So I've now reverted my snapshot or my logical volume back to the state that was when snap 2 was created. It's still mounted, and I told you that we should unmount our logical volumes before we revert them back to a previous snapshot. Let me show you what happens if we don't. So I'm going to go ahead and cd ..back directory, and let's go ahead and try to do this snapshot as well with snap 3. If I hit the up arrow, there we go. So my logical volume is still mounted, and I'm going to try to revert it back to now snap 3. Actually, before I do that, let me just run sudo lvs. I want to show you one thing before I do that. Snap 2 is gone. So whenever we revert back to a previous snapshot, it actually removes the snapshot and now makes it part of my logical volume. So if I wanted to keep this state again, I'm going to want to take another snapshot. All right, so back to where I was, wanting to go back to snap 2. Let's see, snap 3 now. My volume is open or active. You can see right here. So this is where we're going to run to our first problem. If I go ahead and run this, it says cannot merge until the origin volume is closed. Merging of snapshot mydata-vg snap 3 will occur on the next activation of mydata-vg volume 1-lv. So I have a problem here. As soon as my logical volume actually reboots or restarts, if I rebooted my operating system, it would go ahead and apply the snapshot. If I don't want to do that and don't want to wait for it, what I can do is deactivate my logical volume and then reactivate it. So let's go ahead and run that. Before I do that, let me run sudo lvs though and show you the option that appears here. So this big O is letting me know that the snapshot is the origin and it's waiting to be merged with a previous snapshot. And we're going to go ahead and make that back to that little O where we want it. So if we do sudo lvchange, we'll go ahead and say --activate. I'm going to use the letter N for no or deactivate. And we'll call out mydata-vg /volume 1 lv. Go ahead and run that. And you can see now, it says volume 1 contains a file system in use. I still need to unmount it. So let me go ahead and unmount that. So you can see here with the little O, it's still open. Sudo umount mnt storage 1. Now I'll run the command again. And my logical volume is now no longer active. If I run a sudo lvs, I can see the A is missing. It's not active at the moment, which is this field right here. Now let's go ahead and reactivate it. So sudo lvchange, we're going to say --activate. We're going to change the N to a Y for yes. If I run sudo lvs, I can see that it's now active. Now I told you when it gets active again, it should apply the snapshot reverting back to that snapshot. It is working in the process right now. It still has a capital O. If I just give it a moment, let me run sudo lvs again. There we go. We can see that we just gave it a little bit of time and it's now reverted back to snap 3. All right, so now let's remove this old snap 1 that I have. Removing a snapshot is very easy. It's just a matter of sudo lvremove mydata-vg /snap1. And let me spell it right, lvremove. It says that it's active. Go ahead and say yes, I did not deactivate it. But now snap 1 is removed, and running sudo lvs shows me that I just now have my logical volume. So I ran through a whole lot of things here. Basically, when we have a snapshot, we can revert the origin of the logical volume back to a snapshot in time. We can also modify the snapshot by mounting it. We can add files or remove files to it, and we can delete snapshots. So that concludes this video on reverting or restoring logical volumes from snapshots.